Pyrakmon, his form residual with chaos, his mind awhirl with doubt and confusion, fled the scene of his confrontation with Deimos. He needed refuge, a place to collect his thoughts, to understand the turmoil that raged within him. He sought out the one sonship who, despite their differences, had once offered him a semblance of kinship, a connection that transcended their conflicting ideals. He found Hedylogos in a secluded grove, surrounded by a chorus of nymphs. Hedylogos, with his imposing presence and an air of absolute control, was a stark contrast to Pyrakmon's usual unrestrained fury. "Hedylogos," Pyrakmon greeted him, his voice strained, his usual arrogance replaced with a surprising vulnerability. "I need your counsel." Hedylogos, his eyes like polished obsidian, fixed Pyrakmon with a penetrating gaze. He did not offer comfort, nor did he invite Pyrakmon into the warmth of the nymphs. Instead, he dissected Pyrakmon's turmoil with the precision of a surgeon, his voice a razor-sharp instrument. "Brother," Hedylogos stated, his voice devoid of sympathy, "you are a tempest unleashed, a force of destruction masquerading as a builder. You have allowed your ego to consume you, your fear to dictate your actions." Pyrakmon, accustomed to deference and admiration, bristled at Hedylogos' blunt assessment, but he also recognized the truth in his words, the uncomfortable reflection of his own failings. I don't understand," Pyrakmon confessed, his voice faltering. "I thought I was doing what was right, what was necessary. But now I see the chaos I have created, the pain I have inflicted." Hedylogos' lips curled into a sardonic smile. "You mistake power for control, Pyrakmon. You seek to impose your will upon the multiverse, but true order arises from self-control, from the balance of opposing forces within yourself." He gestured towards the whispering voices that surrounded him, the collective consciousness and unconsciousness that guided his every action. "I am the voice of the many, Pyrakmon. I embody the will of the civility, the wisdom of countless beings. And I tell you, your path leads to destruction, not just for yourself, but for all of existence." Pyrakmon, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of Hedylogos' judgment, felt a surge of defiance rise within him. He was not accustomed to being reprimanded, let alone by someone he considered an equal. "And what do you know of power?" Pyrakmon retorted, his voice laced with bitterness. "You hide behind your civility, your wisdom of the many. You have never faced the true chaos, the raw, untamed power that I have harnessed." Hedylogos' eyes narrowed, his voice hardening. "I have seen the depths of chaos, Pyrakmon. I have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars. I have felt the pain and suffering of countless beings, and I have learned that true power lies not in domination, but in empathy, in understanding, in the ability to guide and nurture, to control, not destroy." He stepped closer to Pyrakmon, his presence radiating an undeniable authority. "You have a choice, brother. You can continue down your path of destruction, or you can embrace the wisdom of the collective, the balance that will lead to true harmony. The choice is yours, but know this: the multiverse will not tolerate your tyranny forever." Pyrakmon, his mind reeling, his heart conflicted, stood at a crossroads. He had sought refuge, but he had found a harsh truth, a challenge to his very core. He had to decide whether to cling to his destructive ambition or to embrace a new path, a path that required him to relinquish chaos, to trust in the wisdom of others, to find strength in others. Pyrakmon, his pride stung by Hedylogos' rebuke, felt a surge of anger rise within him. He wanted to lash out, to silence the voice of the collective, to assert his dominance. But he also recognized the truth in Hedylogos' words, the uncomfortable echo of his own doubts and fears. With a growl of frustration, he turned away from his brother, the whispering voices fading into the background as he retreated back to the desolate landscape where he had left Himerus and Balus. He found them huddled together, their expressions a mixture of apprehension and defiance. Himerus, though still weakened from the chaotic vision, had recovered some of his strength, his eyes burning with a newfound resolve. Belus, ever vigilant, watched Pyrakmon with a wary gaze, his hand resting on the hilt of his celestial blade. Pyrakmon, his anger tempered by his encounter with Hedylogos, attempted a different approach. He spoke to them of chaos, not as a weapon to be wielded, but as a force to be understood, a fundamental aspect of existence that could be harnessed for creation as well as destruction. He explained the delicate balance between order and chaos, the intricate dance of opposing forces that shaped the multiverse. He spoke of the responsibility that came with wielding such power, the need for wisdom, compassion, and restraint. Himmerus, his heart softened by Pyrakmon's unexpected vulnerability, felt a flicker of compassion for the tormented Titan. He saw the conflict raging within him, the struggle between his destructive impulses and his desire for control. He sensed a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption, and he decided to offer Pyrakmon a chance to prove that he was more than just a tyrant. "We will train," Himmerus declared, his voice firm but gentle, "but not just in the ways of chaos. We will learn to harness its power for good, to create, to heal, to protect." Pyrakmon, surprised by Himmerus's unexpected compassion, nodded slowly. He had expected defiance, resistance, but he found understanding, a willingness to see beyond his flaws, to believe in his potential for change. "Very well," he agreed, his voice laced with a newfound humility. "Let us begin." But just as they were about to embark on their training, a sudden disruption tore through the fabric of reality. A vision flashed before their eyes, a scene of chaos and destruction. They saw Deimos, his form battered and broken, his energy fading, on the verge of being extinguished from existence. The serpent of chaos, its jaws agape, its fangs dripping with venomous energy, was poised to deliver the final blow. And then, just as suddenly, the serpent froze, its destructive momentum halted. Pyrakmon, his eyes widening in alarm, reached out with his world-forger abilities, summoning the serpent back to his side. Pyrakmon, his concern for Deimos momentarily overriding his other emotions, shook his head in exasperation. "You reckless fool," he muttered. "What were you thinking?" Closing the portal and recalling the serpent of chaos, he turned to them, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "Prepare yourselves, for you are about to face the embodiment of chaos itself." Himmerus, his heart softened by Pyrakmon's unexpected vulnerability, felt a flicker of compassion for the tormented Telchine. He saw the conflict raging within him, the struggle between his destructive impulses and his desire for control. He sensed a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption, and he decided to offer Pyrakmon a chance to prove that he was more than just a tyrant. "We will train," Himmerus declared, his voice firm but gentle, "but not just in the ways of chaos. We will learn to harness its power for good, to create, to heal, to protect." Pyrakmon, surprised by Himmerus's unexpected compassion, nodded slowly. He had expected defiance, resistance, but he found understanding, a willingness to see beyond his flaws, to believe in his potential for change. "Very well," he agreed, his voice laced with a newfound humility. "Let us begin." He focused his will, reached within himself, summoning the serpent of chaos. The serpent, responding to its master's call, materialized before Himmerus and Belus, its form writhing with chaotic energy, its eyes burning with a malevolent light. The challenge had been issued. The stakes were higher than ever before. Himmerus and Belus, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement, stood ready to face the ultimate test, to prove their worth, to harness the power of chaos, and to ultimately fulfill their destinies as sonship. A flicker of warmth, a long-dormant ember of affection, sparked within Pyrakmon's hardened heart. He found himself reminiscing about his time with Hedylogos, their training days, a fond memory of his younger years. He recalled the lessons they had learned, the wisdom he had shared, the bond they had forged. A wave of nostalgia washed over him, softening the edges of his harsh demeanour. He observed Himmerus and Belus, their forms now a blur of motion, as they skillfully countered the serpent of chaos's attacks. A sense of pride swelled within him. Perhaps, he mused, these young sonship were not the threat he had perceived them to be. Perhaps they could be assets, allies in his grand vision for the multiverse. But the warmth was fleeting, quickly extinguished by a resurgence of bitterness. The memory of Hedylogos' abrupt departure and Deimos' unexplained abandonment resurfaced, rekindling the resentment that had festered within Pyrakmon. "No," he thought, his resolve hardening, his eyes turning cold. "Only my way is right. Only through absolute oppression can true order be achieved." He could not allow sentimentality to cloud his judgment, to weaken his resolve. He had been betrayed before, abandoned by the ones he had trusted most. He would not allow himself to be vulnerable again. With a surge of renewed determination, he intervened in the training session, his actions taking on a cruel edge. He amplified the serpent of chaos, infusing it with his own formidable power, its form growing larger, its attacks becoming faster, more ferocious. "Too weak," he muttered, his voice laced with disdain. "You are not ready, not strong enough." Hymerus, caught off guard by the sudden escalation, struggled to maintain his composure. He had sensed a change in Pyrakmon, a flicker of warmth, a hint of compassion. But now that warmth had vanished, replaced by a chilling indifference. What happened? He wondered, his mind racing as he desperately parried the serpent's intensified onslaught. What caused this sudden shift? The confusion, the emotional turmoil, hampered his ability to focus, to channel his powers effectively. He faltered, his movements becoming sluggish, his defences weakening. Belus, sensing Hymerus's distress, tried to compensate, his voice a steady guide amidst the chaos. But even his ability to perceive the chaotic currents was strained by the serpent's amplified power. They were losing ground, their combined strength no match for the augmented serpent. Hymerus, his frustration mounting, his confusion deepening, felt a surge of anger rise within him. "Why?" he shouted, his voice directed at Pyrakmon. "Why are you doing this?" Pyrakmon, his eyes cold and unyielding, offered no explanation. He merely watched, a silent observer, as Hymerus and Belus struggled against the overwhelming force he had unleashed. Hymerus, his anger fueling his determination, tapped into his own reserves of strength.